Hey guys, today this is section 4, day 2 notes of elimination. We're going to cover a few new types and hopefully you'll get a better understanding of elimination today. Okay, so first we're just going to do a couple of review problems. Okay, remember you have 5 steps of solving systems of equations by elimination. The first is to make sure that you have it lined up in columns. You have x's in one, y's in the other, and whatever's left on the other side of the equation. And then you got to look for coefficients that are the same and signs that are different. And if you have that, we then, of course, can add. So we're going to add all of our columns here. Okay, so 4x and x, of course, give us 5x. Negative 3y plus 3y gives us 0. It cancels out. And 9 plus 6 gives us 15. Okay, so easy step, and then you have to solve for what's left. So divide each side by 5, and our x equals 3. Okay, so very, very simple. Okay, now we need to go back and plug in for x. So we can either plug in this x or this x, but the bottom equation looks to be much easier, so that's the one we're going to look at. Okay, so we're going to rewrite that equation. X plus 3y equals 6, but instead of x, we're going to put a 3. So we have 3 plus 3y equals 6, and then solve the rest of that equation. So subtract 3 on both sides. The 3's cancel out, and you now have 3y equals 3. And if you divide each side by 3, your y equals 1. Okay, so we found both our x and our y. Our x was 3, and our y was 1. Okay, so those are the type of problems where you immediately can start adding. You don't have to do anything else. Okay, but then there were other types of problems where you might have to do a little multiplication. Okay, so remember our first step, of course, is to divide it up into columns. Okay, we have x's, y's, and whatever's left. Then we're looking for same coefficient, different sign. So we have same coefficient, but we have the same sign on both. They're both positive. Okay, so since that's happening, we're going to have to go ahead and multiply by something. And I need 1 to be a positive 2, and I need 1 to be a negative 2. So what do we need to multiply by? Well, we know that 2 times negative 1 would give us negative 2. So we're going to multiply this entire column or row by negative 1. So we're just going to change the sign on each of our terms here. So instead of 2x, we would have negative 2x. Instead of positive 3y, we'd have negative 3y. And instead of 12, we would have negative 12. Okay, so this column or row can now go away. We're not going to need it anymore. Okay, so we can go ahead, since we have same coefficient, different sign, and we can add our 3 columns. So if you have 2x and you add negative 2x, those cancel out. We don't need them anymore. If you have 4y and you add negative 3y, that's just like 4 minus 3y, or y. And 10 plus negative 12 gives us negative 2. Okay, so now we can take that y and we can plug it back in into our y. Okay, so let's rewrite that. Instead of 2x plus 4y, we have 2x plus 4 times negative 2, and that all equals 10. Okay, so let's continue solving this. We have our 2x, and then we know 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. And then that all equals 10. So now you just have a two-step equation. Very simple, not hard at all. We're going to add 8 to both sides. And 2x equals 18. And then, of course, undo multiplication with division. So our x equals 9. Okay, so now that we have our solution, we can go ahead and write it in xy form. So your x was 9, your y is -2, and there is your solution. Okay, now you're going to come across some that aren't just multiplied by -1 and you can't just add. So when that happens, let's go ahead and go over what you should do. Okay, but before we go over these last two examples, I have a quick joke for you. All right, here's the joke. What do you call a laughing motorcycle? Think about it. Think about it. A Yamaha ha ha ha. You like it. All right, so sometimes you're going to have systems that don't have the same coefficient and don't have the same sign. So there are going to be occasions that you don't multiply by -1. Okay, so you're going to have to choose one of the variables. It doesn't matter which, but I'm going to choose x. Okay, so here's my x's, and I want one of my coefficients to be 2, and I want one of my coefficients to be -2. Okay, but on this occasion, my coefficient's only 1. So what would I multiply 1 by to get -2? Well, -2 times 1 would give us -2, so we're going to multiply this entire row by -2. Okay, so let's do that. So we have -2 times x, which is -2x. -2 times y would give us -2y. And -2 times 1 is -2. Okay, so we no longer need this equation anymore. We're going to add these guys, these two equations on the bottom. Okay, so if you add these, and I'm going to do this in red, 2x plus -2x gives you 0. They cancel out. -3y plus -2y would give us a -5y. And 12 plus -2 would give us 10. Okay, so after you add all those up and multiply by -2 and all that, you got this clean little equation, and I'm just going to undo multiplication with division. So multiply each side, or divide each side by -5, and those 5's cancel out. So our y is -2. Okay. Now normally I would tell you not to come back up to this top equation to plug back in, as you don't need it anymore. But since it is so easy to plug back in, we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so let's rewrite our equation. We have x plus y equals 1. And we know that y is -2, so instead of y, we're going to put a 2. So we would have x minus 2 equals 1. And then we would undo subtraction with addition. So x equals 3. Okay, so now that we have both our x and our y coordinate, we can put it in our ordered pair form. So 3, -2. Okay, let's try one more. We're going to do that on the next page. One more. All right. And so here's our last one. And we're looking for it to be in the right columns, and it is. Okay, and then we have to get one of them to have the same coefficient. All right, so once again, I'm going to choose x to solve for. So I need one of these x's to be a 6, and I need one of them to be a -6. So what could I multiply 2 by to get -6? Well, 2 times -3 would give us -6. So I'm going to multiply this entire row by -3. Okay, so let's multiply all these out and write it down. So -3 times 2x would give us a -6x. -3 times -3y. Negative times a negative is a positive, so we have plus 9y. And then -3 times 8 would give us a -24. Okay, so let's go ahead and add these two columns up. Okay, so 6 plus -6 would give us 0, so these go away. 4 plus 9y equals 13y. And negative 2 plus negative 24, you're getting further away from 0, so that would give us a negative 26. Okay, so let's finish this off. Divide each side by 13. Those 13s cancel out, and we have y equals negative 2. So there's our first part of our solution, and now we just have to go plug it in. And I'm going to choose the simplest of the equations here, which is up top. So I'm going to rewrite 2x minus 3y equals 8, except instead of a y, I'm going to have a negative 2. That's what we just solved for. So I'm going to plug our negative 2 in there, and that all equals 8. Okay, so if we distribute out, negative 3 times negative 2 is going to give us 6. So 2x plus 6 equals 8. And then our two-stepper undo addition with subtraction. Those cancel out, so we now have 2x equals 2. And lastly, divide each side by 2, and our x is in fact 1. Okay, so since we know our y is negative 2 and our x is 1, we can put that in ordered pair form, and we have 1, negative 2. Okay, so hopefully these 4 examples that I've done have helped you out a little bit and get you a better grasp on elimination. I would like you to try this guy. You try 2, and I want you to solve for y. Okay, so what can you do to get 1 to be an 8, 1 to be a negative 8? See ya.